Okay, a bit of read on this one. Let's just kind of jump to the chase on this one. Again, it's the average rate of change. Okay, the average rate of change. Again, that's in slopes again. Average rate of change. Output, input, determine the missing input and output values in the table. Okay, so, well, what's happening here is, if you can see, as this is going up by 1, this seems to be going up by 1, so the next one would be 5. Okay, now if you've been a little bit clever on this one, okay, you can say this, right, if you were to create an equation, then the y, the output, always depends on x, the input, but what's happening here? It looks like to me we're taking the x, the input, and looks like, if you look at this, we are adding 2 each time. That would be the equation. If I wrote it in function notation, just remember function notation, just remember this, I would say f of x, there it is in parentheses there, f of x equals, with write the curly x, plus 2, okay? So again, same kind of thing, y equals x plus 2, f of x equals x plus 2. Right, but anyway, for you, all you really need to do is put the missing number, which for this one was 5, okay? Guess the missing number. Let's look at some more. Right, as this goes up by 1, looks like this is going up by 2, so I think the next one should be 12, okay? Now, here's an interesting thing. So the students in the class were discussing this one and saying, well, what's the equation? Well, based on the first one, okay, if you were to think y equals, if I take the x, here we go, and add 7, that'll give me 8, 1 plus 7. But look, if I add 7 to this one, oh, I should get 9, but it's 10, so that can't be right, that can't be right. Well, here's the clue, okay? As this goes up by 1, this, the y, is going up by 2. So actually, right, don't worry about this too much right now, it's got a slope of 2, but I'm going to write a 2 there, right? Because it's going up by 2 each time as the x goes up by 1, all right? The answer. Now look, okay, so if I do this, if I look at this first one, so I'm trying to say, let's see if it's got a 2x instead of a 1x in the equation. We don't know yet. Okay, if I take 2, multiply it by the 1, the x, I need to then add 6, and I will have 8. Think about it. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 6 will give me 8. So kind of that's why I kind of have to guess. That works, all right? You know, when x is 1, yes, I will get 8, all right? Let's do something fancy. F of 1 equals 8. Remember your function notation? F of 1 equals 8, all right? A bit fancy. Now, does it work for the rest of these? Okay, when x is 2, let's look at this one here. Okay, 2 times 2, what we're going to do? F of 2, all right? Let's see what it is when x is 2, basically. Right, what's 2 times 2? It's 4 plus 6. Oh, yeah, that's 10. Okay, that's okay. Seems to be working there. How about the 3? Right, in other words, when x is 3, f of 3. All right. If I put it into this equation here again, all right, 2 times 3 is 6 plus 6. Yes, that's 12. Okay, so it seems to be working. So can you see, whereas the previous one down here, when it went up by 1, the answer each time, as the input went up by 1, basically I just had a 1 next to the x. Okay. This one's going up by 2 each time as the input goes up by 1, so I put a 2 next to the x. Now look at this. Okay, let's just try it again then. As this goes up by 1, this seems to go up by 4. Maybe I should do this. 4x. Okay, but let's see what I need to add. Okay, so here we go. I might not have to add anything. When x is 1, y turns out to be 5. So how do I get 5? If I put a 1 in there, well, 4 times 1 will give me 4. I need to add a 1. Right, so is that the equation? Let me erase some of this. We just don't know. Okay, let's just try it, hopefully. Let's try it for 2. Okay, when x is 2, when I put 2 in here, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Yes, it seems to be working. Okay, so if I put a 3 into the equation, all right, what's 4 times 3? It's 12, plus 1 is 13. But what's happening here is just think about this. It goes up by 4, it goes up by 4 again, okay? You don't have to worry about doing this on the test. Any fancy equations and things, it's nice if you can do that. But that's just looking at as the x goes up by 1, the y goes up by 4, okay? And let's just do a, oh, I don't know. Okay, here's a kind of good one. Right, this goes up by 1, then it goes up by 2. So it's like, what's happening here? Okay, well, let's just do these first two. As that goes up by 1, this goes up by 4. Right, okay, let's try that again then. Put the 4 in front of the x, okay. Now you see, all of a sudden we seem to be missing something. In fact, I'll put a little box in here. We seem to be missing, what we're missing here is 3, right? If I squeeze that in there, right, so if it goes up by 4, from 1 to 2, okay, from here we go, from 1 to 2, goes up by 1 on the x, it goes up by 4 on the y. So if it goes up by 1 from 2 to 3, and goes up from 4, okay, that should be 12. If it goes up by 4 again, that should be 16, okay? So be careful. When it's got up by 4, we missed out that x is 3 thing. Now look, the thing is look, multiply by 4, multiply by 4, multiply by 4, multiply by 4. That's how I'm getting from the x to the y. All it is I'm just multiplying each one by 4. So that's the equation. If you look at the previous one, we had to add a 1 as well, okay? So slightly different. Okay, so again, just fill in the missing numbers. Look at this. Now, think about this. You don't have to worry about too much about the equations. Goes up by 1. If it goes up by 1, then goes up by 1, shouldn't that be 1 there? Yeah, it's just the x is just going up by 1. Looks like the y's are as well. Goes up by 1, goes up by 1, goes up by 1. Now, if it's going up by 1, not 2 or 3 or 4, okay, the y, then I'm going to put a 1 next to the x. I mean, I don't really need it, so I think I'll just erase that. Okay, so y equals x, because all it did was go up by 1 each time, all right, as the x went up by 1. Now, how are we going from here to here? Well, this one is this one here, look at that, or that one. I'm just adding 9, aren't I? I'm just adding 9, okay? So, that's kind of how you do those. As the x goes up by 1, the y is going up by 1, which is why, in theory, I've just got a 1 next to the x. Remember how we did all these other ones? Just go back. If it's going up by 4, as the x goes up by 1. If the x goes up by different numbers, if the x goes up by 2, then, you know, you kind of have to think of something different. Okay, but as the x goes up by 1, the y went up by 4. That's why I had a 4 in front of the x. Same thing here, as the x went up by 1, the y went up by 4, which is why I had a 4 in front of the x. But I had to add a 1 for it to make sense. Here we go, as the x went up by 1, the y's went up by 2. That's why I had a 2 there. But I still had to add a 6 to get to the final answer. Okay, so just kind of think of those patterns, all right? And that'll do for that video.